to their parents and family and avoid separating children from the caregivers. If separation occurs, example hospitalization, ensure there is regular contact, example via phone, and reassurance. Need help and support? Please contact us at the hotline 311, psychosocial support at 722-6575 or 518-4157. Brought to you by PAHO, the OACS Commission, and UNICEF.
The opinions expressed on this TV program by the host, co-host, guest, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions and responsibility of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of UTV or its affiliates.
I want to assure the public that I am a commissioner for the people, right?
Yes.
I'm a commissioner for police officers, and it's not a commissioner for any individual political party. I'm the commissioner for St. Lucia, and I'll see to it that all St. Lucians, or everybody, gets fair treatment. Everybody would be treated alike, and that there would be no individual favors given to any groups and so on. Persons would be treated as necessary. Okay, so I just want to assure persons of that. I want to see St. Lucia in a different light.
It is Tuesday, the 23rd of March 2021, and this is the Revolution. First off, I want to send happy birthday greetings because there seem to be a lot of important people having birthdays today. The sexy one herself, timeless wonder, of course, Vernette Boncamper up in the United States. Happy birthday to you, hoping that you're having a great day today. The man Victor E. Yes, Victor Eugene. Great to know that it is your birthday today. That's a lot of drinks around the country for sure. Hildreth Augustine, very underrated and underappreciated by successive administrations. Hildreth, I do hope one day people will see all the work that you have done for your country. The man Glenroy Ramjuan, yep, definitely willing to speak truth to power. Thank you very much for all your support, for those who have supported and those who haven't. Either way, happy birthday to you any which way. And of course, the diva herself, Franny Francesca Solomon, mother to a supermodel to be, of course, Dove. Happy birthday to you, hoping that you have a great day. Saw a lot of cakes making their way to Blazing FM. And of course, if there's any willingness to share, you know how to find me. Yep, happy birthday to all of you, hoping that you have a great day today. So folks, I wanted to make sure we knew where to start today. Commissioner Milton Daisy, brought back by the UWP, brought after making sure that he took care of his good friend Herman Gill Francis by having him stay in his house for about 2.5 years while his home was being refurbished down in Anstleray. Same Milton Daisy, whose wife contributes heavily to the United Workers' Party. Same Milton Daisy is older than Mosheri, but yet had to find some way to make him police commissioner, who's at every UWP ball and says he's a commissioner for all the people. He will not discriminate. He'll be fair to everybody, you know. But then here comes the question. Simple, you know. It'll keep happening. I guarantee it'll keep happening. But here comes the question. The first question is this.
Officers and wardens, please. You all are now causing a nuisance and disturbance to the service. I know you have a job. I know you have a role to perform, but when at this time you want to put somebody out, it becomes a nuisance. It becomes an embarrassment.
Everybody who saw this saw it for what it was: an improper use of authority without taste, without consideration. Something definitely gone wrong in St. Lucia. If no police officer would ever do that, why on earth would COVID wardens be allowed to do that, knowing that they're supposed to be accompanied by police? Even if the person who came in there or who was in there was breaking the COVID protocols, for God's sake, literally for God's sake, whether it's a funeral, whether it is a church service, you all have no respect. You see, seriously? And there is and was social distancing in the church any which way? I mean, I don't get it. But you know what? You have the people on Citizens Aiming for Progress, Minerva and them hack page, and they're saying, I don't care where the person is, you must go and discipline them. I hope if they're cabinet members, somebody will walk into cabinet and do the same thing. I hope when the Prime Minister has an official function that somebody's going to walk in there and do the same thing. Or if the CMO and them are having some sort of NIMAC press conference, that somebody's going to walk in. But this is to you, Commissioner Daisy. You say you'll be fair. So here's the point. If you all genuinely feel that what was done at the cathedral there was appropriate, then here's my question. And let's show the photo. Why is it that Commissioner Daisy has yet to do one thing to enforce any COVID protocol whenever it's a UWP activity? Can you all name one UWP activity, whether it is in a church, outside of a church, or in general, where the COVID wardens or the police have sanctioned, have cautioned, have done anything when it is a United Workers' Party government or party event? Simple. We can come off of that. Simple question. Commissioner Daisy, show people one. Y'all always come with your statistics about crime, assault, robberies, how many houses were broken into, and all the rest of that. But statistically, you have been 100% accommodating, willing to look the other way whenever the United Workers' Party is doing something on the ground that is in breach of COVID protocols. The same effect of Barron's Drive. We can say that people behaved however they behaved, but they were policed. And yet you have a church service, same day, nothing for that in Soufrière. I thought COVID does not discriminate. If COVID doesn't discriminate, then why do y'all? Why does the Royal St. Lucia Police Force hierarchy discriminate, especially during COVID, when COVID is supposed to be about making sure that everybody is treated equally, because COVID doesn't care, according to Shasti, if you're rich or you're poor, if you're black or you're white. Then what happened? What happened? So you're policing one church service in poor taste and in bad judgment by any objective measure. But yet, anything UWP does, you all can't police for Jack. Shasney Cicero, nothing for that. Right? He was at an elderly home day before. Nothing for that. Knowing how vulnerable the elderly are. And they only now this week doing a lot of the outreach to the elderly in terms of going to those who cannot, who are not mobile. Then you turn around, you have people campaigning like Champagne and all of them going all over the country. The same Champagne that thought that since he took one shot, he could not give COVID to anybody else. Show one incident where Commissioner Daisy has enforced the law with regard to COVID and the COVID protocols and the COVID-19 bill. Show one incident where he has had policing of anything that the United Workers' Party has done or is doing. Did I hear any statement with spiders, house-to-house canvassers? Don't come and say anything when you see Labour Party house-to-house canvassers coming. Don't come like that, because again, it proves the point. In the meantime, the double standard continues. And sadly, all we have to show when it comes to law enforcement and crime is failure.
On March 1st, National Security and Justice Minister Senator Herman Gill Francis was named as the endorsed United Workers' Party candidate for the Vieux-Fort South constituency, where he will go up against former Prime Minister Dr. Kenny Anthony. This has raised many eyebrows, including those of Raise Your Voice President Catherine Seeley's, who questioned Francis's capability to lead his ministry as an elected minister as opposed to a senator. Seeley's gave Francis a failing grade in light of the continuously rising number of violent crime and homicides. She questioned whether his political aspirations are preventing him from executing his duties adequately.
You have a Minister of National Security who is failing at being the Minister of National Security, but he is interested in being a politician so that he can become a minister instead of a senator. I want to know what is going to be the difference being a senator and being a minister, because it doesn't really hold a difference. You hold a ministry, you hold responsibilities, you need to create legacy, you need to have success stories, you need to have something. What is it that he has that he feels so confident in his success when it comes to crime, when it comes to justice, when it comes to security in St. Lucia, that he feels he should be a full-blown politician to become a minister, to be in charge of the same ministry? So I want to find out if there is success in minister, but no success in senatorship.
The Raise Your Voice president said the weekend of crime is an example of what ministerial neglect has led to. She expressed the feeling of deep frustration and helplessness following the brazen homicide of Hermia Lord, a mother of 3, who on Saturday, March 20th was gunned down in broad daylight at the Grosley bus stand in Castries. Seeley said she's left to wonder whether anyone is even listening to the many pleas to put measures in place to end such brutality in St. Lucia.
I am asking myself, whatever I say, what is going to be the difference to what I said when Stephanie was found on the roadside by Pigeon Point, when the young lady was found over the precipice in Soufrière, when Kimberly DeLeo Williams was found inside of her home, when the homeless woman was thrown at Cicero by the garbage, when the other young lady was shot and killed at Pigeon Point, when the other one was burned in the car at Pigeon Point. What is the difference to that I said before, that didn't make a difference, that didn't create an impact, that didn't make the government and the police and everybody else realize we needed to do something? What do I say today? Because I am there feeling as if you're watching that Groundhog's Day movie and things are happening over and over and over, and then you say the same thing over and over and again, and then you ask yourself, but why?
Seeley said the government's inaction and misplaced focus is simply empowering the criminals.
People don't care. People are bold. People will do what they have to do because the government is not doing what it has to do. They have not given the police the resources. They have not given them the training. They have not upgraded the capacity of the forensic laboratory. They are not putting any social infrastructure in place to take care of the whatever it is they call rehabilitating children at the Boys Training Center, the New Beginnings Children's Home, in the family court, in the Department of Human Services. All these things are connected. Bodily for correctional facility has to be spoken about as well because it is a security risk. The things that are happening there is a violation of human rights in all its glory.
Seeley said it is time that the government is held accountable for failing to keep the people of the nation safe.
Where is that accountability? You see, until now, until Shasney, we never had an actual leader of a party on either side, UWP or Labour. The maxim has always been that you should not politicize crime, until Shasney did it, to great Cambridge Analytica effect. He is Prime Minister today, in the same way that he lied about the gas prices and then about, a month ago, admitted that it wasn't true. And only because Guy Joseph is getting into gas with Delta Gas. And we'll talk about that conflict of interest as we get closer to the elections. But you see, the problem is, if you have any objective measure of Herman Gill, outside of, I will give him credit with regards, maybe if he doesn't deserve it, I'll still give him credit with regards to establishing a parole board hearing That, to me, is about the only thing I could actually genuinely say. In every statistical category outside of that, he has failed. And then on top of that, he has literally removed a guy who was performing statistically in terms of mortuary better than Daisy, and going on affectations of, oh, Daisy stood and talked to some motorcycle fellas. He stood on the back of a van. Wow. There you go. But you see, again, sadly, this has not to do with facts, but to do with psychology. Bombast. So when you say, oh, he didn't perform, he was a failure, and like I said, even the greatest of detractors would never believe that Herman Gill would have been bad, or this bad, or historically bad at his job as National Security Minister, because the background of being in the police force, although that has its own stories, and the Hudson Phillips report will speak to that, but again, closer to elections. That said, you have to ask yourself, what would give somebody who is failing in his job the desire to even go to a higher promotion? And then you realize, Chasney, because Chasney was a failure as a minister for tourism. Listen to this. If I told you there was a minister that had 6 hotels built during his tenure, including Coco Palm, that helped establish the Grenada Tourism Authority in private practice, right? And grew the tourism numbers every year. Wait. You would say Chasney, right? No, that's actually Philip J. Pierre. Chasney did not add one single hotel room to the room stock of St. Lucia, let alone a hotel. And even now, as Prime Minister and Minister for Tourism, before Fede was made the official Minister of Tourism, Chasney lost the range, screwed up the project at Sabusha, and lost canals twice. Twice. Not even once, but twice. But that's the amazing thing. As long as you talk, and you talk with your chest big, you know, I'm such a hero, I pat myself on the chest, I'm great, I'm this, that, and the other. Even though you fail consistently, like Chasney did, Guy Joseph just said, hey, we want to put that fella because he have the right complexion. He will always have the people feeling sorry for him because he did it and he did like a goofy deck. But Gail Rigo was too black for her to be Prime Minister, for them to vote for her. So we put in him because he will help me to situate all of my bubble. And the rest is history. So no surprise really when you hear Herman Gill boasting about himself. 4 people killed over the weekend. No contrition, no empathy, no true sympathy. Instead of feeling sorry for the families who lost loved ones, or for all those who have passed in heinous crimes, instead of that, what do you get? Again, Cambridge Analytica, plus these guys have that same authoritarian weakness of bullshit. The man actually finds time to boast about himself and lionize himself as if he's a hero because of where he goes and what he does. And you know, I am such a great person because even though all the statistics are saying that I'm a failure, I say that I am great because by my own measure of where I walk and who I talk to, I am great. Wow, and we wonder why we're in such shit in St. Lucia.
National Security Minister Herman Gill Francis has called for a collective voice in condemning the killings which occurred over the weekend. The call was made following an upsurge in violence that claimed the lives of at least 3 individuals. Senior News correspondent Cecil Actil reports.
National Security Minister Herman Gill Francis has...
There has never been any Minister for Home Affairs who have been so vocal on issues of crime. This minister is always accessible to the press and other members of the public. This minister frequents the areas where people deem dangerous places without any bodyguards. Even the leader of the opposition, my friend, the Honorable Philip J. Pierre, has warned me about that practice. I have refused to take his advice. I have been threatened for my stance on crime and the death penalty. And if I were to be killed doing my job, then so be it.
Crime and more crime. White collar, black collar, standing in line. Children live in school and they can't find work, so they join the bandwagon, selling dope on dealers. They are going to school, but what they teach against the rules they face in front, and their eyes in their backside. Hey, hey.
And again, you have one ambition, say one tournament to win. What would it be? What's the tournament that really captures your imagination?
Masters.
Was
The way the blacks have been treated there. They shouldn't be there. And if I win that tournament, it'll be really big for us.
Okay, well, good luck anyway.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.
Is it firm enough? Yes, it is. Oh! He had the hat off before it dropped, Gary. Unbelievable.
You're watching UTV. TV for you.
Why should you wear a mask? As we know, the coronavirus is spread through droplets. A mask prevents these droplets from spreading from person to person. To wear a mask properly, you need to ensure that it covers your nose, your mouth, and your chin. It needs to fit snugly against your skin so that it does not move while you are talking, like so. As you see, it's covering my nose, under my chin, and my mouth completely, and the mask is not shifting while I am talking. You must also ensure, if you're wearing a disposable mask, to dispose of it every day, that is to throw it away every day. If you're wearing a cloth mask, you need to use a fresh one every day and to wash it when you get home after the day.
This is a message from the Revolucian Medical and Dental Association.
S to the J, okay, you don't know it's your boy Shemi J. Bigging up UTV, Underground TV. Why not start a fire? Bam bam big on a beat like Jum Jum.
I think a lot of people, I think it was your director of finance was the final person to present, and she said something that immediately pricked up my ears. And I said, finally, this is happening. She announced central government's intention to pursue as a policy measure diversification of the economy. And she said that we have finally realized that we are too reliant on tourism and we need to diversify. So everything that you've said to me today, I think feeds into this last question. How are we actually going to achieve that? And I would like you to tell me in as concrete terms as possible. Obviously, this is towards the end of your first term. I know that you are hoping to be re-elected to a second term in office, but that may not happen, right? So how do we as a country pursue a diversification strategy?
So diversification is not to take your core industry that you're not even coming close to maximizing the opportunity on and saying, I'm not going to do that anymore and I'm going to do something else. Right now, and meaning the World Bank and the IMF, there is nothing that we have that's going to replace the jobs, the foreign exchange, or the economic impact that tourism is going to do.
We call it a sufficient condition for success. And the third message really is that investing in agriculture continues to be a very strong strategic move. Agriculture has been recognized and agri-food has been recession-proof. And we now know the dictum of many countries that if there is a recession, people must eat.
Agriculture is the backbone of any country. Without agriculture, no country cannot grow.
True.
The mechanism is what is happening now.
Wise.
What is happening now, partner, is wisdom I'm showing you.
Yeah, you're wise.
A lot of the countries that used to supply us with grants are no longer doing that.
So why?
We have to depend on our own. So why? Because countries right now have their own problems, boss man.
So tell me why.
They have their own problems, boss man.
Let the man talk, boy. You can just jump into the man conversation like that.
You have one
after the other, man.
Partner, you have your own problems already. All countries have their problems.
So why they stop it now? Why? Tell me why they stop it.
What?
The same agriculture project. Why they stop it?
Which agriculture project they stop?
We're talking about it.
Rude boy, you not understand what the man talking about, Rasta. You're on a different thing there. The man talking about the abattoir and the DSH project, Rasta.
Listen to that. Abba, if you recording me,
yeah,
we're making sense there.
Yeah, good sense.
Majority of what we eat as snacks, where it's coming from? Trinidad. Trinidad. Listen to that. Trinidad, Jamaica, and Barbados. Majority of the things that are eaten as snacks can be produced here, boss man.
So where all
That's true. That's true.
All our product wasting now. Where
The government must generate money towards them things, man.
Listen to my point.
Nice to do some videos.
Your point making sense, good boy.
Listen to that point.
Come down.
Plantain, melon, sashin, breadfruit is being gotten as chips, but is it being made by 1 cent Lucian?
No.
If you had a proper government for a proper agriculture thing, listen to what I'm telling you.
I'm listening, my brother.
Of these fellas sitting there that know today, let know you that produce tomatoes. That man know you that produce that.
Farmers.
Yeah.
This thing.
Yeah,
how
farmers.
would have employment?
Yeah.
How we go for you? How we go feel the farmers?
You check it. How could we have unemployment, Gassa?
They have that idle man. I like you, man. Bust it out.
When you say, Gassa, when you find the loot, idle mind is a devil workshop.
Yeah.
True.
That man was producing these tomatoes, breadfruit, and what the government is missing to put proper chiller systems, Gassa.
Yeah, proper.
So if there is too much of a product, you preserve it.
True.
And when you plant that product, because each fruit like a melon and these things take 85 days, boss man. In that 85 days, you put what you have already stored back on the market.
Yeah, and the fresh ones go back in the store. That make great sense, my brother. That make a lot of sense.
And you know what it would have done? A lot of our thing would have gone local to the hotels and the tourist market, Gaffer.
True, and the local people can buy too, man. Schools.
You check it.
That's the way forward for St. Lucia. A small country like St. Lucia, farming should be given priority over all other things when it comes to feed the nation and things like that. That's what I'm talking about. You understand? And the policy makers, if they don't see it like that, each day we're going to go down the drain. Because right now all farmers crying, you know. As COVID come, they make it worse. No market, right? No. For the past 3 months or so, 4 months or so, no water to give the plant. That is why there is no food around. No dashing, no tanya, no potato. There's nothing like that around. Not even plantain you can get there right now. Because of what? Because of poor planning. We have no plan for agriculture. You understand? Not even bananas you can get now. Why? There's no, government have to open their eyes. As I mentioned about the 50 to 60% of people that is illiterate. You must have a master plan for these people to assist them, because these are the set of people that have the most children and they need help. You understand? A lot of children could have been into university. Because of finance, they cannot go. You understand? Not even the secondary school. Some of them cannot even go to the primary school because they don't have food to eat.
Don't you find it curious, very, very curious, that tourism hasn't changed in 60 years? Our entire tourism product is still about servitude, servile positions, handmaidens cleaning up after you, pretend you're in a fantasy world where there's no crime, there's no disease, the workers are so goddamn happy, their smiles are just stuck on their faces like linctus, according to the great Sir Derek Walcott. And then turn around, you literally have a government that is willing to destroy everything, knock down this place, mash up that place. They don't care about the heritage of this place, and they tell you it's because of jobs. Even our most sacrosanct Peters have been pimped out and turned into a bourgeois ghetto. Right now as we speak, the base of Gopitor and rising. And in all of that, why is it that tourism somehow manages to stay the same? You can't touch it, it has to stay the same. It's the one earner. And the Prime Minister acts always like, if you talk about diversification, he actually thinks, makes the excuse that it means that you give up on tourism. Nobody said give up on tourism. Nobody said you can't add value with your Tortuga rum cake. The point that everybody's making is that right now, when tourism has all of its convulsions globally, that in the meantime, make hay while the sun shines. You have agriculture there. You have a food import bill of hundreds of millions of dollars that's been consistent and growing. And you have supply chain issues where you will not always have consistent importation of certain goods. So why not? It will create labor. Even with COVID, if you want socially distanced labor, what more can you get socially distanced than farming? 3.5 months. We've had a year We had a year where we could not get tourism to do what we wanted it to because we are at the other end of the scale. The exogenous shocks that come from COVID, from the UK, from the US, our major source markets, Canada, it only made good common sense for us to invest in agriculture. Anything that we planted 3.5 months later, we would have been reaping, and we would have brought down our food import bill, improving the national diet of things that we can use when it comes to ginger, garlic, all of these things, onions, peppers, to help our national diet to boost our immune system. So those who don't want the vaccine still have a very good fighting chance, in the sense that they could actually be on the prevention scale. And you have a lot of the Rastafarian movement that have been correct about a lot of these things. When you hear Rick Wayne talk about bush medicine, as if all medicine didn't come from the bush, right? I mean, let's think about this seriously. But then I realized something, and I don't know if you realized it too. The Prime Minister came into the House. You know, I'm just thinking to myself, penicillin is from fungus, but Rick Wayne talking about bush medicine. Just imagine, folks, the Prime Minister came to the House in late November, early December there, and he said that despite all what happened with COVID, that government tax revenues were back up to about 80 to 85% from where they were before COVID. And what it proved is that even with the tourism part of the economy closed, that St. Lucia, who's supposed to be the third most tourism-reliant country in the entire Caribbean, somehow was still managing on the local economy, even though it was open, shut, half open, closed, lockdown, scaled down, this, that, and the other. Still, for that, the government was collecting 80 to 85% of its revenues. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the much vaunted tourism, which is the holy grail, which all other businesses, small businesses, schools, children, here, there, everybody must sacrifice for, is not all that is chalked up to be.
What has happened in COVID? COVID has exposed the tourism sector, and I'll tell you why. When the first shutdown happened, in which our local economy was also shut down, the curfew and the significant restrictions, the coffers of the government were immediately affected. The Prime Minister came and he talked about a significant drop in revenue to the government. When the local economy was reopened and you had still a limited capacity in your tourism sector, the coffers of the government went up to, I think they said 85% of the levels that they were before. And it said something significant. It said that the contribution of tourism to the coffers of the government are less than what we have been told. And that the activity in the local market, in the local economy, is a more significant contributor to the revenue of the government than the tourism sector. And it created an interesting scenario for our economists, and I hope they do the research, to begin to research what really happened in the economy during the COVID. How, because you had an excellent time where you took out tourism from the economy and see how it impacted. And I really believe we need to begin to do some research to see that that component. So that when we hear these nice comments about, you know, we have the tourism sector has brought in $1 billion in revenue, or when a cruise ship comes in, so much dollars are spent, right? I don't know how they do it, but that particular exercise within the field of economics is critical at this point in time. It's an interesting analysis to see what really was the impact.
So a Prime Minister that refused to give stimulus and still refuses to give stimulus. Businesses closed and all kinds of economic convulsions because he refused to open the local economy first and then open up to the lower risk countries that were trending downwards in terms of COVID. Instead, we imported the disease from the highest risk countries at the worst time when even they shut down. And here we are now realizing that in all of that, not only did we survive, but the shortfalls in revenue for government, which they anticipated would be somewhere in the region of over $300 million shortfall, was only $130 odd million in shortfall. It tells you that for all the money that we have been pumping into tourism, already knowing before COVID that 85 cents on every dollar that we put into tourism was leaving the country. The amount of people that we have in in-work poverty, on rotation, working in horrible conditions, right? Now, if they don't take the vaccine, whole chupabo, but then we turn around now and we realize that basically in the same way that Shastri and them are using the state funds to enrich themselves, their family, their foreign friends and those who they have shares in their company, is the same way that the tourism sector is not only being propped up artificially, but it doesn't deliver in the way that it's supposed to be based on all the way that it's being lauded.
Our first panelist, he is very well known, of course, in media circles in terms of his commentary and guidance and information with respect to fiscal, social, economic issues, accountant by trade and profession, and principal of Grant Thornton here in St. Lucia. He is Mr. Richard Peterkin. And as well, joining us over from the Metro DC area in the United States of America, St. Lucian-born economist, formerly working in the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, of course, as well, worked for the government of St. Lucia for years as well, and now a lecturer in economics over in Howard University, and a boy who prides himself very greatly. I must always mention his time as the manager of the Marisol Football Club. He is Dr. Carlton Augustine. Is it that, in the case of tourism, is it that maybe a lot of those persons are below that threshold, allowance threshold? Is it that they're not paying the taxes at all? I mean, is it that they're just not taxed as much in that sector? Because really and truly, when you look at the results, yes, we saw a drop in your tax collection, but it certainly was not as steep as one would have even expected.
Well, 25% is steep, no matter which way you put it, but the thing about it, we have to remember that while the hotels don't pay corporation tax, almost every hotel has incentives. So, in any budget, there's really very little for corporation tax from hotels. But the significant tax that we get from hotels is VAT, because they pay 10% VAT on their revenues. And so, because there were very few revenues, there was in fact quite a decline in VAT coming from the hotels. And I'm trying to remember the exact figure that hotels on their own contributed in terms of VAT in 2019. I think it was almost $40 million. And that would have gone down 80–90%. So to that extent, the drop in revenue was definitely partly due to the decreased hotel activity. And bear in mind, you're talking about an industry that is said to basically represent anywhere from 40 to 60% of our GDP. So whether it was less PAYE from its employees, less purchasing from local manufacturers and retailers, etc., and less VAT, there is no doubt that a huge part of that, quite a bit of that decline in revenue came from the decrease in tourism activity. But he is right. Carlton is right in saying that a lot of it is, in fact, the economy still chugged along. Yes, people lost jobs, mainly in the hotel industry, but a lot of companies remained open. Buying went down, and so we would expect, that to see a drop in revenues, certainly from activity, from VAT, etc. Not that many people lost their jobs locally, except for those in the hotel sector. So PAYE didn't go down that dramatically. And while companies certainly didn't do as well as they might have been expected, corporation tax did in fact decline. So it was a combination. It was a drop in revenue from the domestic economy and a drop in revenue from the tourism economy.
And I think that's the point, though, but I'm still coming back to that issue. I mean, when you look at our GDP figures, I think the hotel accommodation on its own represents, I think, what about nearly 20% of overall GDP. And then you're saying that, in fact, when we look at the VAT, yes, it went down, but it's still, you've got to wonder, I mean, within that context, is it that we're actually seeing some level of evidence that we are not, in fact, benefiting as much on the fiscal side from tourism as with respect to many of the other sectors?
Well, I don't know. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if this, tourism was beginning to pick back up in the latter part of last year. And then when England ran into its problems and essentially the British market dried up, the Canadian market was shut down, and we were reliant entirely on the US market, occupancies and revenues plummeted. And the last 3 months, the beginning of this year, has been very bad. So I think it would be a false narrative to suggest that we could survive a prolonged period without significant tourism revenues. I think if we continue to, let's say, shut our borders and hotels could not open and there was no tourism activity for the next 6 months, we would really see the impact that tourism has on this economy.
But even right now, I think from what I was seeing, the tourism numbers coming out of January and February, they seem to be fairly despondent at the moment. I think. Oh, yeah. I mean, just to quickly go to screen, I think this is from the St. Lucia Tourism Authority, the most recent release that they've actually put out. And for January, like 6,357. I think that represents a month-on-month 81% reduction there. February was even worse, 4,870. And one would have expected, and I think even that the modeling that the Ministry of Finance would have perhaps been looking at for this period right about now, are we even too sure that the figures that we're seeing in terms of the outturn for revenue, is that even a realistic figure? Is that $802 million, which we expect to be getting out of from taxes, is that even going to be real, considering that this is that the trend has certainly not continued to be an upward trend? It's actually gone down.
Well, from what I understand, the Prime Minister addressed a recovery committee, which I'm a member of, and he was there with his finance people, and he did say that things had picked up quite well, higher than expected in the latter parts of last year. At one stage, they were projecting a drop in our GDP of as much as 23–24%. And in fact, if you look at the numbers, GDP declined
26%, I think, yeah.
Yeah, declined by only 18%. So it shows it could have been a lot worse. But I'm not sure if you're trying to come to the conclusion that it shows that we're not as dependent, or tourism does not have as much of an impact on our GDP.
Oh, no, not on the GDP. Yeah. That's completely different. What I think I'm asking is whether it is in fact impacting on the government revenue side, on the fiscal side. I think nobody's arguing about the GDP, but the revenue side. Your thoughts on that, Dr. Augustine?
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Okay, when I said that the shortfall was not that bad, on the outset I was thinking of hundreds of millions of dollars in lost revenue. But when we look at the magnitude of only a little over 100 million, I think that's fairly good considering the circumstances that we face. So something is at play. It tells us that we don't really know much about our economy. So what we really have to do is to do an in-depth study to see what are the drivers in the economy in terms of government revenue. Because as I've said, I expected initially with the shutdown in the hotels for months, the revenue drop would have been much greater. But when we look at the outcome, if it is correct, it is not that bad. So something is at play and we don't really know what it is. But it does suggest to some extent that in terms of government revenue, the tourism sector is not that important. Yes, there's a shortfall, but it is not as bad as we expected.
Hey girl, what's your name? What's your name? Hey,
you're in a good mood.
Girl, if I tell you, I just pre-registered for the COVID vaccine. Hey, but yes.
Supporting you in getting vaccinated is important to us at the Ministry of Health. By selecting one of the options for pre-registering, it helps us to be better prepared and more efficient at managing your demand for vaccination. There are 3 ways to pre-register for your COVID-19 vaccine. 1. Go online by visiting https://hmi.govt.lc/. 2. Contact your closest wellness center. Or 3. Contact your private physician. When we get vaccinated, we don't only protect our health, we are taking action that benefits the health of our entire nation. Vaccinate for you, for yours, for us. A message brought to you by the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Will I get COVID-19 from the vaccine? No, you will not get COVID-19 from the vaccine. If you remember, the vaccine is not the virus. It is simply a genetic code which helps the body to make the protein to recognize the virus. Sometimes after you've had the vaccine, you may get fever, body aches or headaches. This is not COVID. This is your body simply learning to recognize it and to prepare you to fight the actual virus.
This is a message from the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association.
Did you get the COVID-19 vaccine? Then you may experience one or a combination of side effects, or even no side effects at all. Side effects may include pain or tenderness in the area where you got the vaccine. You may also notice a little swelling or redness. To manage these, you may apply a clean, cool, wet washcloth or an ice pack over the area. Throughout your body, you may feel chills, fever, nausea, joint pain, tiredness, headache, or muscle pain. To manage this discomfort, you should get plenty of rest. Drink fluids, but avoid alcohol and caffeine. If you need to manage pain, you may take paracetamol, not aspirin. You may continue to take all medications prescribed for you for your health condition. Vaccinate. For you, for yours, for us.
Boom! Back it up, gal. Back it up, gal. Back it up, gal. Back it up, gal. Yo, you don't know it's the one and only Freezy here, begin up UTV, Underground TV. Madras.
I've been working in the field of corruption for about 15 years now, wearing different hats, and this work has taken me to many different countries in this world. For instance, why go through time-consuming and tedious tendering processes if there is a known and trusted constructor in the neighbouring village? Why be difficult and start asking questions when the local bigwig wants to rezone some land because he would like to build another house? Now, what holds true on a corporate level may also hold true on a societal level. And this was brought home to me in a very disturbing way, in fact, by another Tanzanian, an architect, who was complaining very bitterly about the way that attitudes had changed in his country. And he was saying, people's attitudes are now, if you are poor, you are stupid. If you are not corrupt, you are stupid. If you have a nice position and you don't make the most of it, you are stupid. Corruption is a very big and a very powerful idea, and it drives many little things in life. But corruption also harms many little things in life. Some people are less equal than others because of corruption. They don't know the right people, they can't pull the right strings, they don't have enough money in their pockets to get what they are entitled to. And many people suffer because of this. And again, another quote from Tanzania, people survive through corruption, but they also perish through corruption. Because corruption harms many big things in life too. On a daily basis, people die because of corruption. Patients do not get treated in hospitals because they don't have the money to pay the doctors, the nurses, the midwives. Sometimes they don't even get into the hospitals because they can't pay the guy at the registration. People get robbed, kidnapped and killed because the police are paid to look away. Schools collapse because building regulations are not respected, because the bidding process was based on corruption.
Sadly, and you can call me cynical, but I can only go on what I've seen, I don't know that St. Lucia has a problem with corruption. I continue to say I believe St. Lucia has a problem when corruption doesn't reach them, when they're not getting in the largesse. And you know, the rollout of the COVID vaccine to me proved my point perfectly, in that when preference works against people, everybody's up in arms. But once preference works for them, nobody has a problem with it. Nobody ever refuses preference, except, like I said, I agree completely with the leader of the opposition. When you only have 3,000 doses and only 1,500 of them, because 1,500 people, because you can, it's 2 doses for the AstraZeneca vaccine, and you need to get your first responders, then I agree. You should not take the preference for you, because logically, your first responders in this situation are the most important people who are putting their lives on the line every day. That said, when it comes to St. Lucia and corruption, it's a strange thing. You know, you've had accusations of corruption, and then you have even admissions of corruption. And somehow, it's just par for the course. And then when you have somebody who's not corrupt, it's either the person is stupid or they're so smart they hate it better. That kind of rubbish is what is said. So folks, I need your help, and I want you to tell me, especially to those who are still diehard supporters of the United Workers' Party, those who intend to vote for the UWP, and those who voted, when they voted for this UWP iteration, voted for change. So that meant that if there was corruption under the former Labour administration of Kenny Anthony, or Vaughan Lewis under the UWP, or Stephenson King, or Sir John, all the way back to 1979, anytime that this time, remember, you voted to change that. Now, I want to show the definition of a conflict of interest. A situation, a noun, a situation in which the concerns or aims of 2 different parties are incompatible. The conflict of interest between elected officials and corporate lobbyists. Instructive there, folks, that's an example in the quotation. A situation in which a person is in a position to derive personal benefit from actions or decisions made in their official capacity. Let me repeat this one. Conflict of interest. A situation in which a person is in a position to derive personal benefit from actions or decisions made in their official capacity. What's in quotation? The example, Watson quit his job after questions about a possible conflict of interest. So we are going to use this lesson definition, Oxford. You can check it out on Google. Just go and say, right, just type in conflict of interest definition. And I'm going to walk you through something that has happened and is continuing to happen in St. Lucia right now. And I only ask one question at the end of it. Just one question, and the question will be, so I'm giving it to you in advance, right? You can go and study it, you can go and check, especially if you support this government. Just tell me yes or no if this is a conflict of interest. So where do we start? We start as this UWP administration came in. Guy Joseph wanted to be Minister for Infrastructure again. While the cabinet still had some backbone, they said no. All Stephenson King, Bradley, all of them said no. Spider, they said no, it's horrible PR. So what did Shasney do? He made Stephenson King Minister for Infrastructure and then took more of the infrastructure budget out of the Ministry of Infrastructure and actually gave it to Guy Joseph's newly created other ministry, Ministry of Tutbagai, Ministry of Concrete and Steel. Because what does economic and development and housing and everything have to do with hospitals, have to do with debushing, have to do with CDP or any of that? No correlation, no corollary. But at the end of the day, Guy Joseph knows his interest in construction projects. Now, 2017 as Minister for Housing, Guy Joseph brings in the first housing development in Forestier, in his constituency. The only curious thing to many would be a housing development without houses.
The project itself, not Forestier, but the project. Unfortunately, when we did the groundbreaking, he could not have been here. My colleague ministers, I am quite elated this afternoon that so many of you, knowing the type of schedule that we are running, that so many of you could be present here with us. To the permanent secretaries, other government officials, persons from the financial institutions, members of the Castries Southeast constituency, residents of Forestier, persons from the media, and all other persons I may have missed, members of the board of the NHC, the chairman. I'm really happy to be here this afternoon. It's because this project was born a very long time ago. And I'm happy that Pastor Darrell is here, the pastor for this Northeastern district, yes, of Seventh-day Adventists. And I'm happy that the location for this opening ceremony is right next to where the church is going to be built. That's the lot for the church. Because we believe in wholesome community development. We believe that we must take care of the whole person. So you have the church, you have the commercial side, you have the recreational side. And when I came into government, I said I'm starting this project first. Charity begins at home. So, fortunately, now you may be wondering why we opening a housing project with no houses. There is a reason. I believe that you cannot start at the top of the ladder. You have to start at the bottom and walk your way up. Now I know they have consultants here and I know that's how they make their living. But consultants have a way of skyrocketing prices on projects. They have a way that you have to pay them so much, and the longer the project goes, the more money they make, the more costly it becomes. This project is a model project in more than one way. Because we did not have a direct consultant who was there nitpicking on every little thing about the project. The contractor, Fresh Start, you hear about them on the media, you hear all the criticism. But if any contractor in St. Lucia can offer me a package as good as the package that we received on this project, I am ready to engage them tomorrow. Here, I know we've approved some money, but they say they have some hurdles in the system. I hope we can overcome these hurdles. We have sold lots. I think they told me the ribbon cutting will be done by the first person who paid for their lot. Yes. That's how you did for the camera. So this afternoon, it's a moment of celebration. It's a moment of celebration for me because this project has been realized within budget, within time, everything. I don't run projects with cost overruns, and Mr. Mangal knows that, and the others. So I tell them, make sure you get it right from the beginning. That there are many more of these projects to come. I know Minister Ezekiel is waiting patiently. I know Minister Fede is waiting patiently. PM, I have the new plans for your area in Angers. So we are looking at that. I know all of my colleagues want housing projects in their areas, and I intend to touch a housing project in every one of the 17 constituencies before the end of the next 4 years. And so, fresh start. I know you are being criticized, but you have delivered. You have given us a project of class. And we are proud that our local contractors could go to the bank without a sovereign guarantee, PM. We didn't come to Parliament and look for a sovereign guarantee for them. They went on their own, negotiated their finance. And the good thing about them, they don't own a truck. So all the trucks in the community was hired. Even some of those who voted against me, the trucks were on this project working. And I'm not afraid to say that because this is an all-inclusive government. This is a government for all the people of St. Lucia. And they think that people who didn't vote for me, I wouldn't let them buy a lot. Some of them have purchased lots. They would think I would want them to go out of the constituency. But their vote, I know we'll get their vote by the next election. So it really doesn't matter. But I'm happy that this project has happened. I am happy that we have delivered within budget. And Prime Minister, you have the assurance that as long as I am presiding over the project, we will come within the best reasonable price and we will deliver the projects within the budget that we have said we would.
Let's look at all of the things that have been normalized by Guy Joseph. First of all, he himself notes when he does not discriminate against people along political lines. So what does that tell you? That the normative value for him is to discriminate. 1. 2, look at the absolute control he has over who gets lots, over who gets work, when it's supposed to be an independent contractor. 3, he's telling you that if anybody else could have negotiated a better package, he will work with them tomorrow. Yet, the project was a direct award to a company that did not even own a truck. The average contractor, even if it's just in a small community, in any part of St. Lucia, rural or urban, they will have at least a truck or two, some equipment, something to show you that there's track record. But no track record for Fresh Start. Out of nowhere, what a fantastic name. Almost like a middle finger in your face, literally telling you, Fresh Start. Yeah, we're doing it again because we did it as A&M and y'all caught us. So this time, we're making a fresh start and we're coming fresh for y'all. Now, I want you to realize, Guy Joseph always boasts that he comes within budget. But when you can give Fresh Start to do a road, a piece of road, probably about 100 yards in Geno, that the Ministry of Infrastructure costed the repairs to the road and the land slippage at $300,000 and give it to Fresh Start at $3 million, then it proves itself. It's just like the road works going on now, up to $50 million. So even if it's only $40 million worth of work, just keep working until you reach, or at least until you can bill or pad up to $50 million. But it's important because that was the first project under this UWP government where Fresh Start getting a direct award for housing. And you know the funny thing, I want to know, wasn't it this government that said that they put Guy Joseph as the governor, their governor on the board of CDB? The Caribbean Development Bank has all the other ministers of finance or prime ministers, most times the same thing. Except that in St. Lucia's case, the Prime Minister's Prime Minister is on the board of CDB, and that is Guy Joseph. And CDB was going to give funding for a housing project, almost $5 million. But then something strange happened. CDB would not pay that money. They would not pay that money because you cannot claim to have a housing development without houses. Now, we move to next. And the next is, somehow the Prime Minister backdates a direct award to give Fresh Start to do a road in Lacouville in his constituency. And once again, Fresh Start, who had never done a project before they did the Forester project, had never done a road before they did the Forester project, went and did this, mined sand, put in concrete that was only 2.5 inches, less than 2.5 inches thick, which is below the industry standard of 5 inches, right? Had air pockets in the road that caused cracks and still has issues, defects going on within that project. But the interesting thing about it was, again, the Ministry of Infrastructure costed the project at $12 million, and yet somehow a direct award of over $5 million more was put in at $18.5 million immediately after that project at Forester could not be funded or would not be funded by CDB.
Even greater concern for the SLP, according to Pierre, is the recent award of contract to the same company for the rehabilitation of 6 kilometers of road in the Prime Minister's constituency of Micoud South.
The contract was awarded by direct award, without bidding internally or externally, for $15.9 million. The contractor has described the facility as design, build, finance, road rehabilitation loan, and has agreed to finance the full extent of the works. The repayment term is 4 years at an interest rate of 6.5% based on the initial outflow of $15.9 million. Unmistakably, the facility made to the government of St. Lucia by the company is a loan. As such, the approval of the Parliament of St. Lucia is required for this loan pursuant to sections 39 and 41 of the Finance Administrative Act 15.01.
A company called Fresh Start sent a proposal to rehabilitate roads in Tigard, Lacouville, Independence and Tirochet in Mico for $15,891,351. They said they will get a loan, an offer the contract to be repaid over 4 years. They said they will charge the government an interest rate of 6.5%. They say that project profits and interest payments shall not be subjected to cooperation or withholding taxes. But what is even more curious, in the same proposal they say, by March 30, Alan Chaste writes the Ministry of Infrastructure. He agrees to the project cost of $15.9 million. He said, mind you, his letter is dated March 13th, but he's saying the contract will start January 2017. So they start before he agrees.
It takes wickedness to the core to exploit a poor country like ours, where there are so many people struggling to make ends meet. C'est soit ou voler, même quand c'est moun ou ni ka voler from c'est moun cette lisia. So je m'entends ou ka me chat pour vebe.
Hey, no, I know this person. You just described yourself perfectly.
The road, according to Prime Minister Alan Chaste, signifies only the beginning of what is to come as it relates to the government's infrastructural plans. Chaste made mention of these plans during his budget address, which many have described as ambitious. He thanked the relevant entities for their hard work and support, adding that $1 billion EC is expected to be put into the rehabilitation of roads throughout the island.
So to put that in perspective, that is 50 projects like this that we're going to be implementing over the next 3 years in St. Lucia.
What you do, you go and fool the people of St. Lucia, have a ceremony to do what? To give it a name.
Mamai Flabo!
A super way!
I'm only upset one thing, you know. Mr. DJ is supposed to be playing my song.
Mr. DJ!
I know everything is going to be all right, but for me.
Yep, and everything is all right for him, not for you. So Fresh Start did the housing project in Forestier. They did not get the money that they were supposed to get. Then they did the overpriced road by almost the same amount, if not more, well actually more, than they were supposed to get for the housing development without houses that CDB would not fund because it had no houses. And then you turn around and then you ask yourself, like I said, the definition, conflict of interest, a situation in which a person is in a position to derive personal benefits from the actions or decisions made in their official capacity. And you're asking yourself, okay, so Fresh Start, every single contract that Fresh Start has gotten, they have gotten it by direct award. What makes a company that does not even have a truck so bloody special? And why, who are people that benefiting from the materials that Fresh Start procures?
It is a perfect opportunity for the Minister of Economic Development, the member for Castries Southeast, to provide answers to the burning questions surrounding the construction of the St. Jude Hospital. I'll give you an example. How does he explain that the preparation of foundation works, the clearing of the site for St. Jude, cost $9 million when the Ministry of Infrastructure put the cost at $4 million? How does he explain it? Why would such a major project costing ultimately over $100 million go only to the chairman of the DCA for approval? Mr. Speaker, why is this happening, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, the member is making statements here that cannot be substantiated. As to the process of approval and what was approved. And I was listening to him, Mr. Speaker, because he mentioned the MEP, which we've said and we've explained the phased approach towards St. Jude, that you have the structural, then the architectural, and then the MEP. So the member, while he's saying there is approval, but he is questioning the issue of the process of approval. He has to substantiate. Mr. Speaker, he is saying that it did not go to the board and it was approved by round robin. So what is he saying? Is there approval or there's not approval?
Point of order. Mr. Speaker, I don't know why I had to give way, because I don't know what the point of order is, whether he's suggesting I'm misleading, I believe misleading the House or not. But I will. You should just keep on reading your phone. See, you in a class of your own, and you'll be
honorable member.
No, that having been said, Mr. Speaker, this is what I have said. One, the only approval that has been given is for the frame of the hospital, the box frame. Secondly, I have said no approvals has been given for electrical works. No approval has been given for plumbing. No approval has been given for health. no approval has been given for solid waste, and the board does not have before it any drawings in respect of these matters. That's the point I'm making, Mr. Speaker. So we are building a hospital, and the only approval is for a structural frame, but no approvals of what the interior, how you run wire, how you run electricity, how you run plumbing. I want to ask, where on earth do you, Mr. Speaker, hear that modern buildings are constructed on that kind of basis? But you know, Mr. Speaker, yes, without approvals. At least you admit it now that it is being built without approvals. Yet you have your colleagues banging on the table that you have approvals.
Honorable members.
But Mr. Speaker, you know what is worse? But you know what is worse, Mr. Speaker? The approval in respect of that framework, incidentally, was also subject to professional indemnity insurance from the designer, who is FDL Consult. Why then would FDL Consult be so keen at this stage on getting professional indemnity insurance? Why? But Mr. Speaker, there's a deeper problem. Buildings are required to be certified by architects. I ask him, which local architect in this country certified the drawings submitted to the DCA? Why were the drawings for the frame approved and accepted without a certified architectural certificate? Why? Now, Mr. Speaker, some months ago, Mr. Speaker, the Treasury held back on payments, asking questions on accountability for the manner of procurement of goods and services. The member for Castries, Saudis, was very irritated, very annoyed, very angry. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, it was the subject of a conversation of question and reply on a talk show host about the payments that are being withheld by the Treasury. So you see, you're starting to get agitated already, that one. At the heart of the issue was a payment to Total Construction Supplies, a company owned by one Mr. Timothy Bangal, the former chairman of the National Housing Corporation, and still a government senator. No, I'm glad he added that. You see, I love it when they open doors. I don't have any problem, Mr. Speaker, with any politician who switches sides, who abandons one party for the next. After all, Mr. Speaker, it has happened on both sides. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, that everybody is entitled to be at peace with themselves and with each other. So, if you feel that you have to leave one party and go over to the next, then so be it. And it is rare that you'll find me making any comments about individuals who take that step, dramatic as it may be. And I don't think you'll find much in the public record where Mr. Mangal is concerned. Today, Mr. Speaker, Total Construction Supplies has been paid $7,039,384.90. $4,692,881.25 in September last year, and $2,000,000 346, 503,075 cents in November also of last year. A further payment of $2,346,513.75 was due for payment this week, but for some reason it was mysteriously cancelled. The payments did not come through. Now these are public funds, Mr. Speaker, paid from the consolidated fund, and therefore one has every reason to inquire. Tell me something, Mr. Speaker. Tell me, Mr. Speaker, doesn't these transactions mean that Total Construction Supplies have a contract to supply goods and services to the government of St. Lucia? Doesn't it mean that? Contracts have a potential value of over $9 million today. Tell me, Mr. Speaker, since a contract exists for the supply of materials, doesn't Mr. Mangal have a duty to inform the legislature that he has contracts with the government of St. Lucia so as to avoid potential conflict of interest? Doesn't he have a duty, Mr. Speaker?
Doesn't he have a duty? If you are involved in the Fresh Start direct awarded project up at Forest Day, then the direct awarded Fresh Start project down in Lacoville, and all the other Fresh Start projects so far, including St. Jude's, where magically, two things happen. In fact, more than two things. A man who is given supplies and materials in terms of building materials is getting direct awards that Guy Joseph needs to come out of the treasury. They have to come out fast. Others must stay behind. He's quarreling. They remove Miss Sonson because she's trying to make sure that if there are 500 people coming, that they will pay the smallest contractors, because the bigger contractors normally hold on longer because they have more ability to do that. That's how they are able to do design, finance, build. They can do it and get paid years later. So what's the problem? What is the problem? Now imagine earthworks done for housing development that Fresh Start does at Union. The soil from the earthworks for the housing development at Union end up being the foundation soil for Total Construction Supplies new building over at Bois d'Orange, right by K&M Healthcare, whatever it is. Is that not a conflict of interest? Mangal is billing for all of the materials that go to St. Jude's in such bulk that nobody can answer as to whether some of those same materials that he is billing the state for were not used not only in the construction of that new building, but also to be in that building for sale and VAT-free as well, soon to come. But no, we reach Rodney Bay now, Fresh Start again.
We've been told about lock boxes. We've been told about this road tax lockbox, and not once has the Minister for Finance come forward to say, well, how much money has been collected by this road tax lockbox, which he claims exists. I know it doesn't, but he keeps on claiming that it exists. And to say how much money has been raised, where is it, what bank account, what bank is it sitting in, is it accruing interest, what's going on with this, what is going on with this money, how is it being spent exactly? But what we know is that we're seeing road projects going on. We're never told what's the cost of the road project. So then you see in the House, somebody will say, well, the road is costing $20 million. And then the Minister for Economic Development, not the Minister for Infrastructure, not the Minister for infrastructure who handles roads, the Minister for Economic Development will stand and say, oh, that's not the cost of the road. But then as to what is the cost of the road, have we ever seen any kind of signing ceremony to say, okay, and this is the cost of this road project, it went through such a bidding process? None of that seems to matter at this point in time, because invariably we're not being given any sense of breakdown of all these various projects. So as to whether you would know the cost of the Marisil Corinth Road, is it coming in over budget? Is it coming in under budget? Are we getting value for money? Were there additional expenses? Were there variances on the project? Nobody knows. We're hearing about roads in VG. Roads in VG being now. And when I first heard about this VG road project, I honestly thought that a mistake had been made and that the government was actually talking about roads in VG, down in VA4 North, because I knew that there was a Kuwaiti-funded feeder road project for agricultural areas like VG, right? Kako VG, lots of arable land in that area. And I knew that project was supposed to have gone forward. And that project was, in fact, stopped, and it was supposed to have looked at roads all over the country, not just in VA4 North, but as well in Dennery, roads like going up to Basile, roads in the Babono area, roads all over the country, in Soufre. And those roads were supposed to have been done through that Kuwaiti-funded project. So it was loan financing coming through a reputable agency, concessionary loans, because it's coming out of this Arab Economic Fund, and Arabs don't have insurance, they don't believe in interest, so therefore you're paying a very, very low rate for your the loans, the money that you're being given. But then what they insist upon is that there's a tendering process, and what they insist upon is that there's a feasibility study that is done to determine whether in fact those are the proper types of investments that are being made. But what are we seeing? We're seeing nothing of that in very many situations right about now. And even where sometimes we are seeing, okay, there's going to be a study on the Castries-Grosley Highway. Study's not done, but yet still we're going ahead. We're taking a 1 mile section of the road, which is perhaps the least important in terms of overall impact on traffic. And that's where we're putting the resources in. And then we don't even know the design of the road. So at one point we say we're putting the roundabout at the Rodney Heights junction, and then, oh no, it's not enough space. So we're now deciding, okay, well, yes, and we talked about that. We made good advice to them, and we said, look, it's not going to work. That size of roundabout's just not going to be large enough for the type of road that you have there, an arterial road, dual carriageway. It's not going to work. And then they eventually decide, okay, well, looks like you're right. You've got to move it to the Larry-Tread Junction. So it's now moved to the Larry-Tread Junction, and the same issues that we raised about the Pillars Junction at the other side by Flavor, we're saying, look, you've got an issue here. It's again, the roundabout that you're proposing is too small. You've got to change the design. And then eventually, guess what? Had to change the design, had to come back, had to put up some nice plastic hoarding to show, so that you could hide that you actually had to go and destroy all the drains which you already built and now realign the drains because you had to change the design because you needed a larger roundabout. And all those things add up in terms of costs, and all those things are being done, and no sense or no information is being provided, no consultation in the process. This is not how development is done. And that's our major issue that we have right about now. So in as much as sometimes we're even seeing some of these figures being brought forward, as to how much confidence we can even have in some of them, it's as a very, very big question mark.
So imagine going through all of this corruption for 4 years. You get into COVID times. And let's be honest, even the most cynical of us would have said this will force them to care, even if it's just for their own political survival. And instead, they're rationalizing and boasting about greed to the point where their own surrogates to their own demise are repeating that drivel. So what is happening? You have a road which keeps changing because it was badly conceived in the first place. Rodney Bay tenants and homeowners have written to at least 5 ministers, including Stephenson King, Spider, Guy Joseph Chasney, and so on. Not one response since November last year, not even to tell them that they acknowledge the receipt of the letter. Nighttime works keeping people up left, right, and center while they try to fix the botched job. And it's not even about that. It's still as I pointed out last week, Thursday, about greed.
Fresh Start is supposed to design, to finance, and to build those projects using their money. Okay, they use their own money. The terms are that after the project is finished, I need you all to listen, after the project is finished, certified, they have spent their money, we now owe them. When that indebtedness is created, and the indebtedness can only be created legally when the project is completed, certified and completed and certified. So after that is done, there is a 12-month moratorium. So during that year, the government of St. Lucia would have already created the indebtedness to Fresh Start. We don't pay them, but we pay them quarterly interest sums on the $50 million, which will only be due upon completion and certification. You're with me? Good. The balance of the monies, well, the interest is paid, and after 1 year, we start paying them in the same 3-month period, quarterly, principal and interest for that quarter. Now, folks, none of those arrangements are calculated on our debt, although it is a burden, a financial burden carried by the state. It is a financial burden carried by the state. But let me just show you an internal memo of the contractual terms of Fresh Start project. Could you put up that first memo for me, please? Good. Department of Finance, from Director to PS. Date 17th June 2020. 4 years after they have been in office. Over 4 years. National Road Rehabilitation Project, Fresh Start. The Department of Finance is pleased to inform you that approval has been granted under the following terms and conditions with respect to the National Roads Rehabilitation Program using a design, build, finance, transfer loan facility. The project, by the way, folks, leave that up. By the way, let me just inform you, information coming to hand. Julius, Tiger has not paid Julius. Julius is taking Tiger to court for the road that was given to Tiger in Dennery as a result of a direct contract. He could not do it. He contracted Julius. Julius was work. He can't get paid. That's under the show. But Julius, if you're listening, I would want you to call the show for me when I open the lines, please. Okay. The project includes the provision for culverts, bridges and road crossings as part of the terms. Terms of facility. Project limit, 50 million. Facility, design, build, finance. Repayment term, 4 years plus 12 months moratorium with an interest rate at 5.25%. Now, moratorium on principal, 12 months from date of commencement of work. Good. So, folks, this is a schedule of payments. Okay, you can take it down. Which shows that we are paying them after completion. There is a 12-month moratorium on principal payment. So for the following year after completion, all we pay them is interest on the money to which they are now entitled. And after that year, we begin paying them interest with principal. Okay? Now there is a schedule of payments, which I will show you. It shows the quarterly payments. So for 4 years, quarterly, there are 4 quarters in a year, so there would be 16 payments for 4 years. But for the first year, there's a total period, you could say, of 5 years of payment. The first year, interest alone. The next 4 years is interest and principal. Could you put up the schedule for me, please? They will, okay, right. You will notice here the schedule of payments to Fresh Start. Each payment represents a quarterly payment, folks. It represents a 3-month payment, so any 4 payments together would be for 1 year. Beginning by moratorium, the interest, as you can see here, for every 3 months is $656,250. All right? $656,250. And that will kick in after completion of the works are certified and after we in fact owe Fresh Start $50 million. So let us say that is money they have in the bank and they're entitled to interest. They will get interest because we owe them. Now folks, that amounts to about $218,750 a month in interest. Zot bietan, $218,750 a month. You can take that down. Folks, that interest payment becomes due only when, 1, the works are completed, 2, the work has been built to specification or to standards, 3, Fresh Start have spent all their money on the projects, so then they are now entitled, and 4thly, our engineers have certified the work. So work is certified, payment is due, interest kicks in. But this is corruption at its highest level. Only 2 quarters have elapsed since they signed the contract. Yo poko même commencé, juge ouais fini. Nou ha ka paye yo le terrain, en lè la ha nou poko dwe yo. You know? When will it stop? When? So it is correct to say that based on those 2 payments that we have paid Fresh Start, once the ink had dried on the contract, we started paying interest. Because we have paid for the only 2 quarters that have passed since the signing of the contract, when they have not spent a penny yet. Folks, like I said, this is institutionalized corruption, aided and abetted by the political directorate. You know? So it is safe to say, like I said, we are paying interest from the day the contract was signed. Now, let me first show you the 2 payments. As I indicated, they signed in June. You saw the thing. July, August, September is one quarter. October, November, December is another one. A third is not up yet. But the 2 quarters that have passed or elapsed, you are in interest of $1.3 million. Show them the first treasury thing for me, please. Good. Vendor name, Marigo Buildings. What happened? Fresh Start made the payments, directed that the payments be made to Marigo Buildings Depot Limited. The contract is in Fresh Start, but Marigo Buildings Depot Limited is the one receiving the dough. $656,000. The date here is, where's the date? Clearance date, 22nd February. 22nd of February 2021. $656,000. Give me the second one. 22nd of February. The other one, 3rd of March. 3rd of March. Another one, 22nd of February, 6, and what? How long later? 5 days. 5 days later, another one for 656,000 again. Those are 2 invoices for representing interest payments for Fresh Start. And folks, the 2 of them are a mere, 5 and 8 days, 8 or 9 days apart. 8 or 9 days apart, $1.3 million in interest. You could take it down. Folks, is that right? Is it right? In a time when the government is saying they cannot even pay COVID wardens. COVID wardens had to work for 2 months before being paid. When the Prime Minister says the country is broke, it is not broke. The resources are ill-directed. We are in a mess. Poor people can't get reprieve. They cannot get assistance. They can't. You know, several wardens have indicated to me, boss, up to the end of February, they're not bothering me again, so they seem to have been paid. But corruption thrives in this country. Oh yes, it does. So, you know, as curiosity would have it, I went and do my research on who is Marigo Depot Buildings Limited. I went to do that. I want to know what's going on. I saw the registration, put it up, of Marigo. Marigo Buildings Depot Limited, company number C493 of 2007. I wanted to know who the shareholders of Marigo, and that y'all could say what y'all want. Everything I show there, genuine documents, facts. Those are facts. Good. Show them who the shareholders are for me. Please scroll up. Scroll up, scroll up. Yes. List of persons with shares. Good. The only shareholder, if you look to the bottom left of your screen, is no other than Timothy Mangal. The only shareholder is Timothy Mangal. Scroll up again. Let's see who the directors of the company are. Let's see who the directors of the company are. And we go to the directors of the company. The company has only one director, Timothy Mangal. Timothy Mangal. I didn't make it up. I didn't make it up. And I leave the rest to you guys. Sign a contract in June. From June to now, only 2 quarters. Only 2 quarters have safely elapsed. We have already paid interest on $50 million for those 2 quarters. So we paid interest on $50 million to which Fresh Start is not entitled. And Fresh Start directed that the monies be paid to Marigo Buildings, Timothy Mangal.
For something, nothing for nothing, something for something, nothing for nothing, something for something, nothing for nothing.
So I'm going to ask the question again, and then I'm going to play a clip, and then I'll take your calls, and you let me know what you think. First, again, I want to show what the definition of conflict of interest is. Conflict of interest, a situation in which the concerns or aims of two different parties are incompatible. The conflict of interest between elected officials and corporate lobbyists. A situation in which a person is in a position to derive personal benefit from actions or decisions made in their official capacity. Now, we can come off of that. First, you have Fresh Start that has never had to tender for direct award. Then, you have all of the projects that they're doing, and you know that Mangal has been supplying materials to them. You know that when payments were not being made fast enough at Treasury in the middle of COVID, Fresh Start still got OECC's, through OECC, $15+ million for St. Jude's. And you say, well, exigent situation. And the materials again from Mangal, there's even an invoice, which I haven't shown you yet, $100,000 worth of nails for 1 month. Who's going to use $100,000 worth of nails? If you build in a hospital in China, maybe, in 1 month, you'll use $100,000 worth of nails. Then you turn around and you realize that at every step of the way, you've had Fresh Start getting direct awards. You've had Guy Joseph having oversight, like he said. They did not even own a truck, but we made sure they gave jobs. So he's basically micromanaging Fresh Start. Then you have Mangal, who was a sitting senator and in charge of housing, pushing a project like that. And now you realize that Fresh Start is making their checks payable, making their payments of over $600,000 in 8 days later, another $600,000. While people, and I want to ask those of you who support and intend to vote for Shastney and them again, how many of you know small contractors that are fighting in the Treasury for $20,000, $3,000, $5,000, maybe $80,000, $100,000? Some people are owed over a year and cannot get a payment. And Miss Sonson, Mrs. Sonson was removed. And who did they put in? They put in Mr. Branford, a member of the Labey Church, the same church that has Benson Emile, who was also, they tried to move around, and they did move around to health. And then you have Mangal in that same church, and you have Guy Joseph in that same church, and then you hear about Fresh Start, and then you hear their first housing project, and then your first person Guy Joseph referred to was somebody in the church, and the church being part of the project, and all the rest of that. And you ask yourself, this is not about fellas that went to school together or came from the same neighborhood. This is a religious conviction. But God is watching you all. There's no shame in any of what you're doing. So folks, my last and my closing argument. I want from beginning to show you that Mangal was involved and acknowledges Fresh Start, what they were doing, and even the service providers that Fresh Start uses in relation to the Prime Minister, Guy Joseph, and everybody else. And then you'll answer the question for me once and for all, is this a conflict of interest?
But more importantly, when I was putting together my cabinet, and I was looking for somebody to put together, to appoint as the Minister of Housing, the first person's name that came up was the Honorable Guy Joseph.
And it is not just only a model community, but you also need to look at how it was done. The quality of this development, the infrastructural works in this development. We're talking about concrete roads of 6 inches in depth. We also talk about concrete drains, reinforced concrete drains that are cast institute, not the traditional block and mortar drains. And that was something developed by Fresh Start in the process of this infrastructural works. Stage of the project. Pictures taken at various stages. Special type of soil applied for us there. I think this is the trademark of the minister. That shows you the difficulty that Fresh Start had to deal with. Red clay in forest there, and to bring it to what it is today. Construction of drains. And of course the final product. And to show you the final product, we did a drone shot over the development. So you could see what it looks like. These are the snapshots of the completed project. Forestier is a rain belt. When it is shining in Castries, it is raining in Forestier. And despite all of the rains, Fresh Start Construction was able to complete this project with its superior infrastructure in record time and 2 months ahead of schedule. Then we look at the road quality. In Marigot, we have a road which is basically of chip and spray. And if you drive into Marigot now, you'd realize that that road already needs repairs. Only with the exception of one concrete road which was built, which is holding up. That should give you an indication of how superior concrete is to an infrastructure done in chip and spray. And chip and spray simply means that you lay down your sub-base, your base, and then you put in your tar and you lay your stones over the tar. Here in Forestier, the quality of the road is made out of 6 inches thick of concrete, used with the latest technology of fiber reinforcement. The drainage in Marigot is of blockwork. In Forestier is of concrete. And today it's a blessing in disguise. I'm actually happy that it rained here. As you drove through this development, you saw no potholes, no puddles. You did not see any water stagnated in the drains. And when you drove on this development, you did not feel any bump.
Mr. Mangal, I also want to congratulate you on a very thorough presentation. It clearly should tell all of us how involved you and your board were in this particular project. And I want to thank you on behalf of the government and the people of St. Lucia for your level of commitment. And if you can please convey our gratitude to your board members for their personal contribution, because obviously this did not happen by business as usual.
And this is not about a church. I only pointed out that the only common denominator that I could find was the church, just to show that all of these people are supposed to be God-fearing people. So it's not about a church, but it is about greed, knowing that after 4 years, from 2017, you take in, then COVID comes, and you take in more. We have a call. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Chris. Chris, wasn't it Guy Joseph who said in the House, in response to concerns raised by Dr. Kenny Anthony, that he knows how to use money
to create wealth? Yep.
What Guy Joseph conveniently forgot to add was whose money he was using and whose money he's still using to create his wealth.
Yep, very true. Spot on.
Now, this relationship between Guy Joseph and Timothy Mangal, you know, this relationship is so mired in corruption that this thing is staggering. A&M, when all this corruption was uncovered with A&M and how A&M Asphalt and Mining got this contract, this Unora International Airport contract.
Yes.
And the thing blew up because the thing became so stink, the stench of it reached a high heaven. A&M couldn't continue anymore because, of course, we know later how this guy and
Asenza, yes, Antonio
was
Asenza,
being investigated in the U.S. for money laundering,
and still is.
Yes. So, what happens? Another company comes in,
and they make a fresh start.
That's right. They make a fresh start, And Guy Joseph is all over the place promoting Fresh Start, how it's such a great company, and how, although it doesn't even own a truck, you know, it is doing such great work.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't go, you know, above the cost of the thing, no cost overruns. But of course, again, what he conveniently doesn't say is that although the Ministry of Infrastructure costs projects, the projects that he's interested in, at let us say, you know, for argument's sake, $1 million. What we're hearing later is that that same project cost $6 million.
But even with the road at Lacouville, it was costed by the ministry at 12. It was direct awarded for 15, and it ended up being 18.5.
Well, there you go. I mean, Guy Joseph isn't just the Minister for Economic Development. Guy Joseph is also the Minister for Health. He's also the Minister for Infrastructure.
He's the Minister of Personal Wealth.
Minister.
He's the Minister for Personal Wealth.
Every ministry, you know, look, and finally, Chris, let me just point out something to you. Relevant to that project of $50 million. Although it says project limit, it doesn't say that that is the actual cost.
Thank you.
One of the things that this project says, you know, and we need to be careful with, you know, that the moratorium on principle, hear what the agreement says, 12 months from date of commencement of works. It doesn't say on completion of the project, you know. It says the moratorium on the principle, that is the time, you know, during which no payments on the principle will be made. It doesn't say 1 year after the project is completed or has been completed. It says 12 months from date of commencement of works. And that's the first time I've seen anything like this, which means that if the project started, let us say in June or in November, as the schedule shows, which means that by the following November, whether or not the project has been completed, the payments on the principal will commence.
And imagine, and
on
just
the full $50 million.
And the best part is, this is supposed to be design finance bills, so even the interest payments, and all of what is going on there is stuff that's supposed to be paid later.
Exactly. And so look, I mean, the corruption, again, you know, I use the word, the corruption on this thing is staggering. And again, what's his name? Timothy Mangal, again, is all over this thing.
And that's just what we know, eh?
That's right. Exactly. There may be more. In fact, I believe there are more.
No.
Lots more.
I know there's more, but timing is everything.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, caller. We have another call on hold. No? Okay. Well, we'll try to take 1 or 2 more calls before we're done. We lost that other call. But the question for you is, you who mindlessly support Chasney, not even UWP, because UWP died with Sir John as far as I'm concerned. These guys just pimped out the brand. You want more of this to happen, where you join Labour Party and all other people in St. Lucia to your own disenfranchisement, just because. So it's just like if I support LeBron to win the NBA championship, or I like Liverpool, or I like Manchester United. That's all that. That's how basic it is. The psychology is so, wow. And then they'll tell you, oh, Christopher just won that because he just wants a job. But if you see a problem with me doing that because I might want a job, then doesn't that tell you that if you can identify right from wrong, which you are wrong about, but that's not the point. The point is then, how can it be right now? Good afternoon, caller.
Good afternoon, Christopher.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, the first reason why I called you is to put a little pressure on you guys, sir.
For what?
I mean, your father's birthday, to me, you should have a little something on national TV. Either bring a little case of malt and maybe ask somebody a question pertaining to your father, and if they get the question, you know, correct. as to say like maybe what year he was in the UN or what year he, you know something so to keep the spirit alive. So I think you fall short there. But next year, if God say you have to work on that. What year he was the president of the West Indies cricket or something so.
What I would look forward to is if God willing there's another administration and they are working hard on the syllabus for a national history of St. Lucia course for all of us. I'll go back to school for that, and I'm sure that his name will be written in many different spheres, and my mother's as well, when it comes to the development of St. Lucia.
Yeah, so I give you a little plug there.
No problem.
But we're moving forward.
Yeah.
You know, a one-eyed man is a king in a blind man country?
Yep.
Everybody blind, but you have one eye. You know, you run things.
Yep.
Now, that was Richard Peter King, one-eyed man in a blind man country. That man is a man, I used to just trust that man, guys. I trust that man wholeheartedly.
And what happened?
Nobody listen. A one-eyed man is a king in a blind man country. Now, a one-eyed man, among everybody that have two eyes, he no longer the king. You see?
Mm-hmm.
When everybody was blind and he had one eye, he was the king, he used to run things. Now he find himself having one eye and everybody have two eyes. That man said something, Richard Peter King. And I respect that man, I admire that man. That man said to us, we have to watch our spending. Watch our spending. And I trust that man wholeheartedly. To the extent where I was going to buy a tank of gas. In fact, I was going to buy a bottle of wine for $40. But when I check in my kitchen, I realized I have no cooking gas. So I remember Richard Peter King, and I forget about the bottle of wine, and I go and buy the cooking gas. So I'm saying, whether that man advice is only for the average people or not the government. You laughing? So that only applies to the average person. So he's supposed to come forward as a patriotic solution and tell the government, do not proceed with the bridge for $40 million at this time.
But you
he
see,
didn't say that.
Caller, there are two things that happen that nobody wants to talk about in St. Lucia. The first is, whenever anybody comes to St. Lucia to do business, there's a group of suck-ups, elite suck-ups, that get the business. They get the law, they get to do all the legal work, they get to do the PR, they get to do the accounting, they get to do the brokerage, they get to rent their properties, their villas and everything. And it doesn't matter what happened in St. Lucia could burn. But once they get that business,
but Richard Peter King is a rich man.
Right, nothing will happen. And no matter what they get, it's never enough.
Richard Peter King, as far as I know, that man is a rich man.
No, caller. Caller, here's the second.
People are about to close.
Caller, here's the second point. Here's the second point. We always talk about the average guy that stand up in front of a platform with a t-shirt on, red or yellow, going, hey, and we thinking that person doesn't know any better. But when you have people in the professional class that for all what they know, for all their qualifications, for all their logic and all the evidence, still go just like the person they say is a mindless supporter and they support, what's the net difference? Nothing. And
but listen to me in closing. Listen to me in closing. Did you see the demeanor on Richard Peter King's face when he was on that program with Dr. Carlton Augustine? The man wasn't comfortable at all, Papa. Dr. Carlton Augustine, that man stripped Richard Peter King and he put him naked.
Well,
a question was asked by the host in closing, Calix George, concerning the CIP money. The CIP money was well spent in Dominica on the people. Casa, Richard Peter King, that man skip that. That man talk about CIP coming to an end soon. But Calix George did a very good job on bringing him back on track and telling him that's not the point as to whether CIP is finishing soon. Did this government spend the money on the people with the CIP funds? And Richard Peter King, boy, that man drugged that boy. So, Gasser, Richard Peter King, I telling you, I am not an intelligent person. I have no degree, but I'm a patriotic solution. And my brother, I used to like you, Gasser. I was your #1 fan, but I thought you were patriotic, Gasser. But I wouldn't call you a sellout. I wouldn't say you singing for your supper. But I just tell you, you have your vested interest, my brother. Have a blessed day.
Thank you, caller. And at the end of the day, you see, that's where Shastney, the brilliance of the Cambridge Analytica argument of running a country like a business comes in. If they tell you, for example, that your patriotic duty would be to respect, for example, that the Inland Revenue has never had government intervene in its collection of taxes, and you as a patriot say, damn right, let the Inland Revenue do its job, and all the solutions that have tax refunds could get it back to 1987 from the year 2017. But if Sandals is your client, as they were for Richard Peterkin, then you go to cabinet and you shake hands and you do whatever you have to get your client off. And that's what happens. So the fact of the matter is, in St. Lucia, like I keep saying, when preference works against us, right, we against it. And when it works for us, you know what you hear? Like you tell them, Cabot lands, and you tell them all the artifacts, everything. They just said, well, I try not to worry about those things, but you focus on the arguments that you like. Nonetheless, folks, we are well out of time. Oh, we have a call on hold? Okay, I'll try to squeeze that call in. Thank you, caller. Sorry for keeping you waiting. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good day, Mr. Hunt.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, man?
I'm okay. Ready for elections.
I've been following the show, and then I'm realizing that you have evidence, or you show evidence of corruption in the government, corruption with Guy Joseph. We have it stipulated on paper, corruption with Timothy Mangal, and all the other guys with a lot of the country's money, or the people's money. But it looks like nobody's doing anything about it. All what we're hearing is talk.
Agreed.
You look at the Richard Frederick show, you hear talk. You hear the media hosts, and it's a whole bit of talk, and and it's not getting anywhere. So what I'm saying, if there is evidence that those persons or the United Workers' Party are doing so much corruption, why don't the opposition or the people step out and say too much is too much?
Agreed, caller. So then I come back to the same question. I'm putting it to you. What are you prepared to do? Because that's what it comes down to. Each of us have to determine what we are prepared to do. I meet so many Facebook warriors and Instagram and WhatsApp patriots and rebels. How many are willing to stand on the street? And when they say, oh, they can't jail all of us, it's true they can't jail all of us. But are we willing to be in the first 5, 10, or 50, or 100 to go to jail? St. Lucia is a bigger problem. That's why I said an election is not going to solve our problems in total. What St. Lucia needs is a revolutionary mindset. We need to change things. We need people at the top to have not only respect, but a certain amount of fear for people on the ground. And that's what's missing to me. But it's not just the opposition. I agree with you, they could do more. It's not just the people, but the people are us, you and me. So what are you prepared to do? Because if you're prepared to do something, I'm prepared to join you.
Okay, I understand. I was just about to say that the people, we are supposed to show some form of action, that we're not satisfied.
What would you like to do? My number is 519-1818. What would you like to do? And let us begin to build that core of people that are going to do it.
Hello?
Yes, I'm listening to you.
Okay, I wasn't hearing you too much. Well, you see, the people, we need to protest about it. We need not wait for election on the day of election.
Okay,
and say,
I agree with you, caller.
Because on the day of election, there's always a funny thing happening.
Caller, I agree with you. I agree with you. So I'm asking you, what do you want to do? I'm prepared to work with you. Right now, this afternoon, I get off the air after this call. Call me, let us see what we can actually do.
Nobody's talking. Yeah, we need to come together with the opposition.
Caller, I understand that. I have heard that. You yourself just said we're waiting for everybody else to act. And I'm trying to tell you that if you want everybody else to act, then we can lead by example and let you and me, the two of us, speak this afternoon and then decide from tomorrow what we are going to do, and who come with us, who don't come with us, suck salt. Okay, okay, thank you, caller. Thank you, caller. And you know what I just proved to you there, folks? The problem still remains. The same person that calls about talking is talking about doing, and I'm trying to get to the doing. I have already done by myself, and I'll continue to do by myself. The truth is, I don't need an army. The truth is, I have enough pride in my country alone to do it by myself, and I will do and have done things by myself. Until others are of the same mindset, everybody's waiting in pluralistic ignorance for somebody else to do something. Well, that's why we are exactly where they want us to be, in a submissive position. Nonetheless, my time is more than up. I'll leave you with a clip that is fantastically relevant to the moment.
Deliver us from Chasney and Guy Joseph. Guy Joseph, teeth more than poor patat fellas and Bokash fellas combine. Lord Chasney put in Coolie Town rum in the vaccines.
Father, look at what is coming.
Lord,
The opinions expressed on this TV program by the host, co-host, guest, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions and responsibility of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of UTV or its affiliates.